Well, hello, everyone. I'm Rev Shad Groverland. I am the president and CEO of Unity Worldwide Ministries, which probably doesn't mean a whole lot to you. What does that mean is that I run the home office that works with and oversees and supports the 650 ministries that we have around the world. Did you know we had 650 ministries around the world? Yes. So we are the organization that supports the ministries, the leaders, the licensing, the ordination. So we create all the credentialed leaders that serve the ministries. We support them, their boards, and you, fundamentally. So that is what I do on a daily basis with my staff. So that is a little bit about me and what we've got going on. So I'm going to share a little bit of my story with you all that has somewhat of a message running through it. It's also my wife Erna's story with me. So is that okay? Yes. I just want to preface by saying this is my story. And each of us has our own story. And my story might have elements that you might say that doesn't work for me. And that's okay, because I'm not telling your story. I'm telling my story. All right? Okay. Well, let's just get right into it. This is a question that has been on my mind since I was probably a teenager. What do you need to be happy? I was born and raised in Unity, so I came with a somewhat different perspective than other people that might have been around in their teenage years. And I was doing a lot of questioning about life. And I saw that there was a lot of paths in life that did not lead to happiness. And so early on, I was already questioning, what do you need to be happy? And it was interesting that I sort of just went along with the path that life prescribes for you. So I talked to my guidance counselor in high school, and they say, you got to take these classes, get these grades, to be able to go to college. And you're like, all right. So I did that. And then you apply to college, and you talk to your guidance counselor in college, and they say, all right, you've got to do these things to blah, 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 to get a good job. And you go, all right. And then you get a good job, and then they say, all right, well, you got to start climbing the ladder at your job, blah, 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 blah. And looking back, I realized at no point did any one of them say, this will lead to happiness. Ever notice that? Neither of my guidance counselors, nobody at my work, none of my mentors at work ever said, oh, and by the way, once you've accomplished this, you'll have happiness. It was never even part of the equation. Can anyone else resonate with that? So I followed that life-prescribed path, which is pretty much the quote-unquote American dream. I did that journey, and I got to my first big job, working my first big job, and found myself pretty much just buried in debt. And I got to a point where I said, why am I not feeling happiness when I followed what everyone who was older than me told me I should do? And then you look back and you go, well, I'm not even sure they had happiness. They were guiding me as counselors, but I'm not even sure they had happiness because they didn't say, oh, this is what I did and I found happiness. They just said, do this. So I got to that point in my life and I sat there and I said, how did I get here? I had a lot of debt and I thought, well, you know what? I'm a Unity person. I know better. I've got to get back in my path. I've got to get back to my work. So I would do that process. But then a few years later, 3 or 5 years later, I found myself once again back in debt, back not feeling well, and realized that I had once again fallen into the path that society had subscribed for me. So there's a pretty smart individual out there who shared with us a little something here. If I can get back to that quote from Einstein. Let's see if he'll go back. Doesn't seem to want to. Okay, let's try this. Go in here, then we go here, and then we go here. There he is. Einstein was hiding from us. I don't know if you know this individual, Albert Einstein, but he said, a calm and humble life will bring more happiness than the pursuit of success. And that's been constant. That's been cut off. And basically the constant effort for more. So here we have this amazing human being, Albert Einstein, possibly the most intelligent human being ever to walk the planet, right? Some of you are like, no, I'm smarter than him. I see it in your eyes. I see it in your eyes, you judgy folks. How dare you? We have this really smart individual that's basically saying, stop complicating your life, and you'll find happiness. But when we hear stuff like this from an individual that's this brilliant, we don't just sort of put out a press release around the world and they say, everyone, stop what you're doing. We just heard from on high, one of the smartest minds on the planet, that we're doing it all wrong. No, we don't do that. We just make a little meme about it. We post it online, we like it, we move on. Well, that was neat that he said that. So over and over in my life, actually multiple times in my life, I stopped, I slowed down, I said I got to reconnect, I get my life back on course, and then it would get out of control again. And I began to realize that because the system is built for me to do exactly that, it's almost impossible for me to beat the system while I'm in the system. The media is telling me a way to live. My friends and family members are telling me a way to live based on what they were told is the way to live. Society, the entire systems around me are built on one specific way to live, and none of it has ever talked about this will bring you happiness. And the thing that I found really shocking as I came to the realization is that we actually make sure our own friends and family do not step out of line with that path. If someone starts to step out of line with that prescribed path of misery, we actually shame them. We make them an outcast. We make them feel bad about the fact that they're stepping out of the system. So I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, one of the skiing capitals of the world. And we had what we called ski bums. We call them ski bums, people that only worked just enough to be able to ski as often as they possibly could. And we call them bums. God forbid you spend most of your life doing what you love to do. You're a bum. You're an outcast. You don't even deserve to be with the rest of us. You should be locked in a cubicle and miserable just like I am. You bum. Have you noticed we do that? People that are like, I'm not going to go straight to college. I might just go travel and do some things like, No, you'll never go back to college if you do that. You got to get right into that system. You need misery right away. Because if you experience some bliss, you might not then go back to misery. So we rush our kids into this system of misery to make sure they don't see a speck of the hope of what's outside the system. Because if they do, they might go, I really don't feel like working a 9 to 5, folks. I might work a 2 to 5, 3 days a week. And I don't need that much. But we're going to shame that. And we're going to make sure that they don't do that. And we're going to build a society that makes sure nobody does that. Because if enough people did that, we might go, maybe there's a different way of doing these things. You might remember this individual, Mr. Miyagi. Another brilliant individual, even though fictional, from the Karate Kid series said, focus, Daniel-san. Have you recognized that if you do not have a plan for your life, someone else will give you one? If you do not have a focus for your life, someone else will give you a focus. And they're happy to do it. And most often that focus, that plan will be the one that benefits them, not you. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that our society is built on us benefiting large corporations as opposed to us finding happiness and joy? I mean, look at how the school system was designed in this country. It was designed to make you an employee of a corporation. Not that I've got anything against corporations. We're actually in a corporation right now. This is a small corporation. It's just got a spiritual side to it, which makes it a little bit better. Without focus in your life, you become the pawn, whatever has the most influence in your life. Whether it's television, whether it's social media, whether it's a friend, a mentor, whatever it is, whatever has the most influence in your life then starts guiding your life because you don't know what you should be doing or not be doing because you don't have a focus on what you're actually trying to accomplish. And if your focus isn't happiness, then it's something other than that. If your focus isn't to actually live a life of joy, then it is something other than that. So every time I came to the point where I said, I'm not really feeling that happy, I'm working a lot, I've got tons of debt, how did I get here? I go, I don't have any focus. So this is the only place I could end up if I didn't have focus. Because the system isn't designed for me to naturally just fall into a place of joy. It's designed for me to naturally fall into a place of overworking, getting stressed, getting ill, using more products, using more medication. Should I go on or are you getting the point? So we can dance around these issues, or we can get really honest about it. We can keep shaming people that are trying to step outside the system, or we can start saying that there's something else emerging in the world today. What do I truly believe in for my life? Well, this other person, I'm not sure you ever heard of her, Mother Teresa. Another great mind, but not only a great mind, a great soul, said, live simply. Again, did we do a broadcast across every channel and say, hold on, everybody. Mother Teresa just said, live simply. She probably knows what she's talking about. Let's just scale it down a notch. No, we make a little meme, we put online, we like it, we move on. We don't stop and go, the greatest minds on this planet, the greatest souls on this planet are telling us to slow down and to simplify. No, we just look at it, we move on back to a path of misery. Is that not crazy? Does that not bother anybody else? Well, obviously it bothers me. And it has bothered me so much in my life. So I've had to come to some questions in my life. Let's see how this has happened. All right, I'm going to try to remember. Does the way I live my life align with my priorities? Does the way I live my life align with my beliefs? I realized that I was just kind of going along, and I thought my unity principles would just kind of take care of me for me. Not really stop and go, oh wait, I actually have to make an effort to make this stuff work. I can't just sit back and let life happen to me. I've got to happen to life. And I realized there's so much hypocrisy in the world. There's so much hypocrisy in government. There's so much hypocrisy in big business. There's so much hypocrisy happening everywhere you look. I didn't want to be a hypocrite. Does anybody else here want to be a hypocrite? But raise your hand if you are a hypocrite. Come on. Raise them high. You're all hypocrites. You just haven't learned how to own it yet. I work really hard at practicing unity principle every moment of my life, but I can tell you I'm still a hypocrite. I still take a break once in a while. But I want to live the type of life that if someone saw me outside of ministry, they saw me any time of day, they'd say, that dude's actually living what he believes. Regardless of what you believe, at least you're living what you believe instead of getting lived upon by somebody else's belief. Living what you believe, that's authenticity. I wanted to live what I believe, and I wasn't. I was following other people's prescribed path, and that's why I wound up in debt over and over again, because I wasn't living what I believed, knowing I really didn't need these things to be happy. I didn't need to keep climbing the corporate ladder. And what's funny, I've had a very successful corporate career, but I kept getting promoted out of the job I liked. Has anyone else ever had that happen? My entry-level job, I actually worked in the casino industry and the production side of it. My entry-level job, mixing shows like the tech booth back there, was so much fun. And I was so good at it, they promoted me to a desk to schedule all the other sound engineers that got to mix the shows. And then they promoted me again and again until I got further and further away from the part I actually loved, was the live music and the sound and the audience and all of that. And that's just how the system works. If you don't have a focus, if I had focus, I would have said, no thanks. I'm loving what I'm doing. I make enough money. I don't need to keep moving up. So does the way I live actually align with my priorities in life and my beliefs in life? Well, this is one of my favorite passages from the book of Mark. Sometimes when I've been in ministerial school, I came up through Unity, I would question, is the stories in the Bible actually real? Does Jesus' character actually live? Is this all just made up? And you've got the friends that go, oh, that stuff's nonsense. It's all made up. You got those people in your life. But then you get to a passage where there's just a moment that's so real. It just shatters the concept of fiction. And you go, I can feel when that actually happened. And this is one of those moments in the book of Mark. So to preface this, you've got a father who was trying to get his son healed. He thought he might have been possessed. But we know today he probably might have just had a mental illness or epilepsy or something. They thought it was possession. So he brought it to the disciples. They couldn't heal his son, right? You brought it to the first rung. They're like, yeah, we can't do it. Move it up the ladder, bring it to Jesus. So they pass him along to Jesus. So he gets to Jesus with his son. This is what Jesus says. Jesus said to him, if you are able, all things can be done for the one who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out, I believe, help my unbelief. Now step into the mind of the father at this point in time. When you've been with a child who's ill, you will give anything to heal that child. He's come to Jesus hoping that this entity outside himself can do the work of healing this child for him. Please, Jesus, take care of this situation. I don't know how to do it anymore. And what does Jesus say? This is on you. If you don't believe this can be done, it can't be done. I'm not here with a powerful authority over you to heal this child. Your consciousness is holding the child in illness because you believe this child is ill. And in that moment, the father goes, damn. I believe, but help my unbelief. He's saying, I believe, but help my unbelief, my deep unbelief, my doubt, my lack of faith. Jesus, help me, because now I know this is what's holding my child in bondage. My own consciousness is affecting my child. And in that exact moment, he has a switch. He says, I believe, oh no, help my unbelief. He realizes that it is me holding my child in bondage. It is my consciousness affecting the people around me. It is my consciousness that's designing my life. And once you realize, I don't actually believe, you realize you have a problem. You believe. I come to church on Sunday and I believe in God. But if I truly believed in God, my life would look drastically different. You know what I'm saying? If you truly believed that your thoughts were creating your world, your life would look drastically different. Drastically different. If you truly believed that your next thought was creating your world, your life would look drastically different. Well, I do believe that to be true. So I came to some realizations in my life. If I actually believe in God, which I do, then God must become a priority in my life. Any time of day someone comes upon me, they'd have to be able to say, he believes in God. There's no doubt he believes in God. Because I don't want to be a hypocrite, right? I already am a hypocrite. I don't want to be any more of a hypocrite. If I actually believe in God, then God must become a priority in my life. What then in my life needs to shift to align with that belief and priority? I've got to take my life to task. I'm not just going to accept it as the way it is. Because I found myself not happy and in debt. If I actually believe in God, then what in my life needs to shift to align with that belief? Are you following me on this thinking? I realize if I actually believe in God, what in my life has to shift so you would even see that I believe in God. Not just with my mouth, but my life is my message. Something would have to shift. I'd have to have dedication to a spiritual practice. A daily spiritual practice. Not just when I got around to it, not just when it was convenient, not just praying when things got difficult, but praying all the time. A daily spiritual practice that on any given day of my life, if someone saw me, they'd go, he's doing a daily spiritual practice. When they talk about how you master a musical instrument or you master a sport, it takes 10,000 hours of practice. How many hours do you think it takes to master life? Maybe more than 10,000. The masters of life, the ones who did master life, said, this is going to take every waking moment of your life. This won't be just something you get to when you get to. It's got to be a constant practice. So if I'm going to try to at least get to 10,000 hours, I've got to be putting in some hours every day into this practice. If I actually believe in God, I'm going to have to do this every single day. Dedication to a spiritual community. You see, I realized that I cannot break out of this system if I'm surrounded by people that are forcing me back into the system. You follow me? That's why spiritual community is so important. That's why this is so important, to be surrounded by people that believe what you believe, and they're not calling you crazy. You say, you know what, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to check my consciousness. And they don't cart you off to the loony town. They say, I'm going to pray with you, I'm going to work with you on that. Instead of shame you and riddle you with fear, they say, I'm going to work with you on that. Let's do a circle, let's pray on this. You have to have those people around you if you're going to break out of this system that's trying to make you miserable. Not purposefully is this system built to make you miserable, just unconsciously by unconscious individuals. Third, I'd have to be dedicated to living unity principle. Not just memorizing them, not just talking about them, not just pontificating on them, not just debating with my friends about them, actually living unity principle. Especially coming into my position as a minister, I was like, if I'm going to be a minister, I've got to be doing this stuff. I do not want to be one of those pastors that's a hypocrite outside of church. I want to be doing it 24/7 to the best of my ability. I'm still a human being, folks. You might catch me stub my toe and curse, all right? It might happen, but I'll catch myself pretty quick, I hope. I'll still blame the door, of course. I will blame the door for a short period of time, but give me that. So fundamentally, we say, well, what is unity principle? If we wanted to sum up all the principles we have, we are one family as children of God, individualized, unique expressions of the one. If I actually believed we are one family of the divine, my life would be drastically different. I would treat people drastically different. I would start judging politicians as bad and evil. I'd start judging other political parties as bad and evil. If we actually saw ourselves as one family under the divine, we'd go, that's me. That's me on a bad day. That's me with information that I don't currently have. They're not worse than, they just have a different perspective than me. And you know what? They might actually be right. As much as I think they're wrong, they might actually be right if I was standing in their shoes from their perspective. That's what one family does. They don't say, you're evil, you're an outcast, you're wrong. They go, you're my family member. I'll consider what you're saying might be true. I'll listen to you. How would this shift my life knowing it and believing it and making it a priority to me? Actually seeing all of us and everyone I run into as a brother or sister of the divine. Well, for me, and again, we're going back to my story right now, I decided I will not consciously or subconsciously, directly or indirectly, suppress or harm members of my God family. I just cannot let that happen anymore. Not my nuclear family, my God family. That means I have to think about how everyone's being treated. Not just me and those I run into, everyone. We are not all one until we are treated equitably. We like to say we're all one. From God's perspective, sure. But in this system, nuh-uh. Nuh-uh. In this system, I stand here as a white, heterosexual, cisgender, middle-class male. This system was built by people like me to favor people like me and to suppress individuals unlike me. And if I don't own that and work to break that system with the privilege that that comes with, I am now supporting that system and encouraging it to continue consciously or subconsciously. So I've got to do a lot of work on my own life and my own unconscious bias and my own privilege that's very uncomfortable to come to terms with if I'm going to get to a place where I try to keep everyone treated equitably. This includes all suppressed groups, Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ+, women and people of varying abilities, and animals, who often get left out of the conversation. This is my consciousness, folks. You have your own path. I'm just telling you what's going on in my consciousness. I will no longer be party to the suppression, exploitation, or consuming or members of my God family. My consciousness will not allow it. This is not about me telling you how to live your life. This is about me telling you what my consciousness will no longer allow me to do. My body reacts, my life reacts adversely when I break out of what I truly believe to be true. My consciousness no longer allows it. Even when I step out of line, I've held myself to a standard where my consciousness goes, what do you really need to be happy? Really think about it. What do you really need to be happy? How much junk do you really need in storage to be happy? How many storage units do you really need full of junk to be happy? How many guest bedrooms in your home full of junk that never gets touched do you need to be happy? I'm touching some buttons now. Touching some buttons now. It went from laughter to nervous laughter. And my wife and I, Erin and I, we have taken this question to task in our lives. We really stopped to say, what do we really need to be happy? Mother Teresa said, live simply. But what the full quote is, live simply so that others may simply live. Think about her perspective in the world. She's working in these third world countries with people that cannot even find a way to get food into the mouths of their babies. And she's looking back at the Western world and she's going, come on, folks. Live simply so others may simply live. How much do you really need to be happy? There are people that cannot get food into their babies' mouths. How much do you really need to be happy? Can we just share a little? There are no limited resources on this planet. There's only limited consciousness. And it's the limited consciousness that creates the suffering. Well, we've done this work, and we wound up in an 180 square foot tiny home. We went from a 5-bedroom home in Las Vegas to we said, this is ridiculous. We only enter 2 of these rooms in our home at any given time. And so we scaled down to a 2-bedroom apartment. And then we realized we only really ever hang out in the kitchen. We sleep on the bed and we hang out in the kitchen. So instead of just watching the tiny home shows and talking about how cool it is, we said, let's actually do it. Let's do what we believe. We really don't need that much to be happy. And so we did it. And we've been living in this 180 square foot home for 3 years now. That's not to say we're special. It's not to say we've done anything fantastic. We just made a choice to decide on what exactly we need to be happy. And my teenage daughter lived in there with us until she turned 18, and our little dog, too. What do you really need to be happy? If you ask that question enough, you will naturally just start letting stuff go. Start cleaning stuff out. There are so many things in your life right now that are actually just causing you guilt because you're afraid to let them go. Heirlooms from vacations or relatives or whatever it might be. I was given this thing or I had that thing. Or I couldn't let this bed go because someone may use it someday. You know what I always recognize when I went up buying a house throughout my life, the real estate agent says, you want to have room to entertain. I don't like entertaining. I don't want people sleeping in my house. But yet they always convinced me I was going to entertain and I needed extra bedrooms and get out of my house. There's hotels in town. Go stay there. I love you, but there's plenty of room out there. But yet I was always buying a bigger and bigger house because they say, you're going to entertain. You want to entertain. I was like, I love people, but we can meet at a restaurant. True prosperity is about how much you can unfold of your divine self. See, the last few decades, we got a lot about prosperity is about accumulating more things and more benefits for me and myself and more job advances and better relationships and me and me and mine and me and mine. And prosperity became very selfish and dangerous. When true prosperity is about how are we all doing? Could I actually simplify my life to help lift you up? That's true prosperity. My divine self wants to make sure we're all doing okay. Not just me. And that's the truth as I experience it. Thank you. We're going to do a little bit of meditation now. So if you want to get yourself into that space, unity, we often call it the silence. So if you're not familiar with the term meditation, you can just recognize this as a time for internal reflection. So I invite you, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes. If you can sit with your spine straight, just to allow that energy to flow from the tip of the tailbone to the top of the head. We've been given such an incredible thing that we call life. And we've been given this incredible tool called consciousness that allows us to design and create our experience of life. But it really requires us pausing, slowing down, reconnecting and tapping into what really matters about life. What really matters to me, what really brings genuine joy into my life. Becoming aware of those things that truly matter, then starting to focus on just those things. And designing a life, co-creating a life with God that amplifies and magnifies those things in our life, so we are living a life of authenticity. A life in the flow. Because the more things we try to clutter into our lives, the more we dam up that flow. The more opportunities we take to remove those cluttering things from our life, the more we open up that flow. So we take time each day to pause, to slow down, to tap in, to remind ourselves what truly matters. And if we get quiet enough and with enough practice, we'll hear what some call the still small voice, the voice of intuition, or what we call in unity the Christ within, guiding us along the way with words of wisdom and answers to problems we've been not able to figure out with our own mind. So let's do that now and take some time in the silence. Let's bring ourselves back into this time and space with a renewed sense of clarity for our lives and a commitment to take this week to analyze what truly matters and be willing to let go of those things that do not bring us authentic, genuine joy. So it is. Amen.